Three-dimensional aquarium backgrounds can be wonderful, but sometimes they're a pain in the butt. Today I'm going to tell you guys the pros and cons of having a 3D background in your aquarium. Hey fish friends, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Zenzo from Tazawa Tanks. Now, if you've been around this channel for a while, you may recognize this place. This is kind of the OG YouTube spot, probably 3-4 plus years ago. It's been quite a while since I've sat in this spot and filmed videos, but the first 100 or so videos of this channel were pretty much right here in this spot. So anyway, we're bringing it back here for a reason, and the reason is we're going to talk about 3D backgrounds, which I have backgrounds in both of these aquariums. Now, originally I wanted to talk about some fish that are in this aquarium that I've been wanting to have for a very long time. Finally got them. And there's also some fish that are very special that are also in this aquarium. But right now I'm kind of having an icky situation. Get it? I've got a little bit of an ick outbreak. So I'm taking care of that. I've been medicating and treating and they are recovering, but I don't want to make a video highlighting these fish because I've got ick on them. I just got them recently. So anyway, I'm taking care of that, but I still want to talk about 3D backgrounds. Now, the reason why I decided to make this video is I was actually dealing with a problem in this aquarium, which we're going to talk about shortly, and it drove me crazy. It basically took like, I don't know, 2 hours of me dealing with this issue because of the background. And I thought this would be a good topic to share with my frustrations, kind of give you the pros and cons of a background. Now, I've made other videos talking about three-dimensional backgrounds. I've actually took you through a whole series on how to make one that's just like this one in this aquarium here. And I will put links of those videos because I think there's 3 or 4 videos of that series either down below or up above in the link. But anyway, you can check that out if you want to know how to make a 3D background. And I've made a lot of videos about those before, but it's been quite a while. But this background in this aquarium is purchased. This is one from Universal Rocks, and this one obviously is one that I made, and they both have pros and cons. Now, first off, let's talk about what is good with a 3D background. And I don't want to sound like it's all doom and gloom because there's a lot of great qualities when you have a three-dimensional background. The first one, which is probably the most obvious, is aesthetics. It really looks good. I think that it adds a lot to an aquarium when you have, you're going from a plain glass back of an aquarium to something that's three-dimensional, something that looks more natural looking, whether it's wood or rock or something, some other type of texture. It really does add a lot of character to the look of the aquarium. So I really do like that. Another pro for having a three-dimensional background is a lot of times, and this is the true in this case with both of these tanks, is that you can hide a lot of stuff behind the background. So when you look into the aquarium, pretty much all you see are decorations, plants, the background, the fish, etc., the substrate, and you don't see things like parts of the filter. You don't see heaters and stuff like that. So I've got heaters in this tank, I've got heaters in this tank, and they are behind the background, so you can't see them by looking into the aquarium. So it does really help in that aesthetic as far as hiding things and making them look nicer, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion. Something else that I happen to appreciate with a 3D background, and this may not be the case for everybody because not everyone is taking photos of their fish like I do. I take a lot of pictures of fish, both for YouTube and for Instagram. And that is when I have a background on an aquarium, it makes taking photos of them a lot easier. I've got less opportunity for any kind of glare or reflection from the fish inside of the aquarium, being reflected back to itself, or anything from the outside being reflected back. It does kind of absorb the light, or it doesn't reflect any light, so it does help in photography. Another benefit of having a 3D background is that it could make your fish feel more safe. So oftentimes, if you have fish that are in an aquarium and all 4 sides of the aquarium are open, so there's just glass on all 4 sides, sometimes your fish could be a little bit more skittish, so they'll not feel secure in certain areas because they feel like they're always out in the open and they're at risk of something getting them or them not being able to hide somewhere. So when you have a background on an aquarium, they tend to feel a little bit safer. So you might notice the behavior of your fish are different when you have a background versus if you just have a open glass aquarium. Now you can do things like putting like a paper or plastic background behind the tank, and that does help too, because obviously there isn't anything, looking through the back part of the aquarium if there's something there like a piece of paper, but they can still see reflections oftentimes. So if you have like a black piece of paper or vinyl or something behind the aquarium, if the fish still sees the reflection, it's not quite the same as having something that looks like rock or wood in the back of the aquarium, and thus kind of giving them a little bit safer feel as far as security. Another thing that I really like about having a 3D background is that it really does help in sometimes blending things together. So like in this aquarium, I've got kind of this rock looking background, but it's kind of like a sandy brown kind of rock look. And it does kind of work well with the driftwood that I have in this aquarium and some aquarium decorations that kind of help blend it all together. So it's kind of like a seamless flow from the background to the decorations where it just looks more natural. So again, this is really all about aesthetics. I do want to pause here for a moment and just thank the sponsor of the video, Underwater Galleries. You may remember that in this aquarium before, I had like a large cave, a large flat cave that was great for like catfish and plecos. I've got two of those large caves, and they are downstairs in the fish room in my 125 with my Oscars, and there are catfish in there. There's a big pleco in there, and they use those caves all the time. Well, Underwater Galleries also sent me some different types of caves, and these are kind of more like a faux driftwood look, but they're made of that same ceramic material. And these are also great for things like African cichlids as an example. So if you did have mbuna, this would be like a nice mbuna cave where they could go in and hide and kind of have their own little space. I actually have some fish in here that are using these all the time. In fact, there are a couple that made this, there's two of these in there right now, and they made them their home, so they are pretty much occupying one cave each. But pretty cool design here. Again, it's like a ceramic material, very heavy, doesn't float. It's totally safe for fish. It's inert, so a very nice product that you might want to try in your aquariums. I'll put a link down below. There should be a discount code down there as well, so that you can check these out and get one for yourself. All right, so we talked about things that are great. Now let's talk about things that are not great, and we're going to get into the story about why I had such a hard time with the 3D background and why I was so angry and frustrated, when you're going to understand here in a moment. So one of the drawbacks of having a background in your aquarium is they're not inexpensive. They can be quite costly depending on which one that you get. They could be easily a couple $100 or more depending on the size of your aquarium. So it's not like just like a like a graphic or a piece of black vinyl or something that you can put on the back of your aquarium that might only cost you $15, $20, something like that. These are a lot more, right? So they're 5-10 times the cost of just a paper background. So that is an issue. If you're going to build your own, while it may be more cost effective than buying one, it's still not inexpensive because you're buying those materials and then you have the time, and it could be a pain in the butt. And I've had some, I made this one time that was it was a 6-foot long background, and it was for a client of mine when I had my aquarium service business, and the entire thing was a failure and had to kind of start all over. So there are times when these DIY backgrounds even don't work. So there is the cost factor to consider. Another issue with having a 3D background is they're not easy to install. Like in this situation, this is a 75-gallon aquarium, there's a brace in the middle. So that means that if you have a 4-foot long background that you're trying to fit into an aquarium that only has an opening that's like 22 inches on each side or something like that, you'll have to fold it and bend it and get it in, and sometimes it's not very easy. And then once they're in, you kind of have to figure out how to attach it to the glass. Are you going to use clips? Are you going to use silicone? If you're using silicone, you got to use a lot of it. You got to really make sure that it's on there properly and give it time to cure. Same thing on the DIY background side. Depending on how you make it, they're going to float. If they're made of foam, you're going to have to use silicone and stuff like that. So they're pretty much permanent in some cases because of the silicone, or they can be big pains in the butt in installing them. Another downside to having a 3D background, and this is something that could be quite serious depending on the type of aquarium that you have and how you care for it, and that is water flow. So if you have a background that has open space behind it, that means that there's stuff that can get back there, organic matter. It could be uneaten food, it could be fish waste. In some cases, it could be a dead fish, as an example. And if that water is not mixing with the regular water column in the aquarium, you could kind of have these little stagnant spots where the filtration isn't picking it up, or it isn't getting removed. You can't get to it with a gravel vac, as an example. So sometimes you'll see kind of large pockets of detritus and stuff like that behind the background. So that is something to consider if you are going to get a 3D background. Another problem with a 3D background is actually two parts, is they take up space, both in swimming space and in water volume. So depending on this type of background that you have and how it's constructed, it could take up a lot of space as far as swimming area. So in some cases, it might be 1 inch, less swimming area, which may not be that big of a deal. Or you might have something that might protrude like 4+ inches or more, and you might go from having 18 inches front to back to something like 14 inches front to back if you do have a large background that sticks out quite a ways. So the fish may have less room to swim. It means that you have less room to do decorations, add plants, have certain fish that get larger, as an example. And also, if you have something that's quite large in the aquarium, it could also take up water volume, meaning that if you have a very large background in a 75-gallon aquarium, you may no longer be able to have 75 or 72 gallons worth of water in there. If you count the substrate and stuff like that, you may lose like 5 gallons worth of water, which may not seem like a lot, but in some cases it can be, depending on the type of fish that you're keeping, the biological, balance and everything like that. So that is something to consider, is that they do take up space. Some of them are very thin and they may just adhere directly to the back, and they may only take, a 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch worth of space. Those ones aren't as much of an issue as those that protrude and stick out, that do have those characters that make them, the characteristics that do make them look amazing. That also is an issue because it can take up space. And now we're going to get to the worst part of a 3D background, the part that I've had the biggest issue with over the last 4 or 5 years, with my own that I've made, with ones that I've purchased, and that is things can get behind them. And we're not talking about uneaten food or fish poop. We're talking about fish, and it might be a fish that you really want. It might be a fish, whatever it is, the fish can get behind the background. Now, in some cases, you might have fish that spawn, meaning they breed, and you have baby fish. Those baby fish may be able to get through very small openings in your background. Maybe you've put additional, holes or something in there to allow for water movement to take care of that issue that I mentioned before. Those baby fish will go back in the background because they can get through the small opening. It's safer because they're away from the large fish, but they grow back there, and you'll look back behind the background sometimes and you'll say, hey, how did I get 4 3-inch fish behind this background that I never purchased? Well, they were born in this tank, they went behind it, and they grew back there. That has happened to me several times with this background because I do have some small holes, very tiny holes, but small holes nonetheless, to allow for, the water to be able to pass through so I don't have those issues. And I had fish growing up in the back of the background and I had to catch them, which was a real pain in the butt. Well, recently I told you that I got some very special fish special to me, I should say. And I looked in the aquarium, I'm like, I can't find it. Where did they go? And there was 2 that were missing. And I looked behind the background, and sure enough, they were swimming around back there. And I was fortunate enough to be able to catch them without too much effort and move them, put them back in the main tank here. Well, something else happened where the water level rose in the aquarium because of my filter, and it rose just a little bit more to where there was a little bit of a lip, and again they got back behind there. Well, this time they were a little bit smarter. I could not easily catch them. This background kind of has like little caves on the other side because it protrudes out this way. I was not able to get them. What I had to do is I had to do a large water change. I had to catch all the fish in the aquarium, take them out, put them in a bucket, take out all the decorations, remove the background, and to move the background and catch the fish. And this is not like a very easy thing. It's a giant background. It's, and you can't make the water too cloudy or you won't be able to see the fish, because they're swimming around in the murky water. So it was a big pain in the butt. I was really upset about it. Took me a couple of hours, like I shared, and when I was done, I just double and triple checked everything to make sure that all the gaps were covered and there wasn't a way for them to get back there again. But it is an issue. So, and I know this has happened to other people before. In this aquarium with my DIY background, I've pretty much designed it to allow fish to go back there, knowing that it's just going to happen anyway, so I'm not going to fight it. So I actually made, in this aquarium, little caves that pass through so that I could actually see through to the very back of the tank, and I know that there's space for them to swim back there and swim back out into the main part of the tank. But those openings are, like the size of a soup can. That's actually what I use to make the mold, so they're quite large, so they can swim back and forth, not a problem. In this case, they got back there, they couldn't get back out. So if I never went there, they would have stayed back there. They would have lived, they would have been able to eat because some small amounts of food would have gone through the openings. They probably would have been stunted, but I wouldn't have been able to enjoy them. So that is probably the biggest issue when it comes to having a background. The stuff can get back there. Unless you're really good at setting it up at the very beginning, you're going to have an issue. So I know it's a little bit longer of a video today. I was kind of ranting a little bit about the parts that I don't like. Now, I do think that 3D backgrounds do have a lot to offer, and I do really enjoy them. I wouldn't change these for anything. In fact, I've actually been thinking about how I can incorporate more of them in my fish room downstairs. So in the future, I may have more 3D backgrounds, but when I do so, I'm gonna have to think about all these issues that I shared with you already to make sure that I don't have those problems again. So anyway, if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button. Please do subscribe if you have not done so before. It really does help my channel. Hopefully, if you've made it this far, you enjoy the video and you'll enjoy other videos that I make. That's all I had for now. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.